In the principal book of Daoism, the Tao Te Ching, we are told, the Tao that can be told is not the true Tao. Yet this book keeps on talking about Tao for 81 verses. In Won Buddhism, the Tao lies in using our six senses appropriately according to time and place. So during the silent meditation time, the proper Tao is silence. During Dharma talks, the proper Tao is talking and listening. So now I'd like to talk a little, and you may simply listen. In Korea, some young adults often proselytize on the street by asking this question: do you want to know about Tao? Tao has broad meanings. So many traditions use this word. Just like the concept of God is used in many ways in many traditions. To understand what Tao means, let's check into the historical background of Daoism. Daoism originated in China, with its earliest roots tracing back to the 6th century BCE, strongly influenced by ancient Chinese religious and spiritual beliefs. It can be considered a philosophy and religion, or a way of life. The philosopher Lao Tzu wrote the main book of Daoism, Tao Te Ching, which is about compassion, humility, and conformity to nature. Historically, the tradition arose in opposition to Confucianism, which focused primarily on proper manners and rules and social order. Taoism has two faces in Asia, one as a religion and the other as a philosophy. As a religion, it incorporates native shamanism, including rituals and beliefs in deities like the Jade Emperor of Heaven. Come to think of it, my mom honored the kitchen god by offering a bowl of clean water and rice on the kitchen counter. When I traveled to Taiwan many years ago, I visited Taoist temples. They were highly ornate and filled with colorful decorations, loud rituals, and crowd of people burning symbolic paper money and incense. The smoke and noise ran me off. One of the ideals in Taoist religion is to become a Taoist sage with magical powers, attaining longevity and immortality through Qi energy cultivation. When I watched the movie Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, it seemed to me that it was based on Taoist culture. I also loved Kung Fu Panda. And I still do. As a philosophy, people practicing Taoism seeks to align themselves with the natural order of the universe, with its unseen, ever-present ebb and flow. The symbol of yin and yang represents the interconnectedness and the balance of complementary and oppositional forces such as light and dark, warm and cool, or life and death. Understanding this, practitioners aim to live in balance with the way of nature. Transcendence of yin and yang is called Wuji, the realm of non-duality. A verse from the Tao Te Ching says, "The Tao is like a well, used but never used up. It is like the eternal void, filled with infinite possibilities." Voidness, infinite possibility. Does this ring a bell for you from the truth of Wan Sang? The Chinese character Tao is translated as the way and is found in many places throughout Won Buddhist scriptures. For example, Sotaesan, our founding teacher, commented, Daoism took the way of the natural universe as its core principle and taught techniques for nourishing original nature. It elucidates the path of tranquility and non-action. Chongsan, the second Dharma master of Won Buddhism, cautioned the essence of Daoism is non-action and spontaneity. But if one approaches non-action and spontaneity incorrectly, one becomes self-indulgent and licentious. After Daoism was introduced to Korea from China many centuries ago, it merged the indigenous practice of shamanism with Buddhism. Won Buddhism integrates the philosophical elements of Daoism, Confucianism, and classical Buddhism. As we study more together in these fast-moving modern times, I hope you can taste the flavor of these ancient teachings within Won Buddhism's practical applications. Tao can be referred to not only as the way, but also as truth and Dharma. Tao has multifaceted meanings. When we think of Tao, we often relate it to nature. As found in nature, the key value of Tao is non-action, which means conducting oneself without pretense or artifice. Lao Tzu says to live like water. Water flows downward with humility. With its gentle nature, water flows around obstacles without resistance. Tao also refers to the ultimate reality. It is the natural order of the universe and the underlying principle that governs all things. In Won Buddhism, this aspect of Tao is expressed as the universal principles, great and small, being and non-being. Taoist philosophy in Won Buddhism is also found through the teaching, grace of heaven and earth. Heaven, sky, sun, planets, stars, the Milky Way, the universe. Earth, the ground we stand on. In the scriptures of Won Buddhism, the grace of heaven and earth is expressed like this. In heaven and earth, there is the way, Tao, and its manifestation. The spontaneous motion of the great mechanism of the universe is the way of heaven and earth. To help us reflect and model ourselves on the Tao of heaven and earth, Sotaesan described its 8 great qualities. Body. How many great qualities? While you are listening. 1, exceedingly radiant, as nothing blocks the brightness of our innate wisdom. 2, exceedingly steadfast, through deep sincerity and dedication in all that we do. 3, exceedingly just and fair by following the middle way. 4, proper and natural by being reasonable. 5, vast and immeasurable, being free from partiality. 6, eternal and imperishable, liberated from changes occurring in all things through birth, aging, illness, and death. 7, free from good or bad fortune, not being easily enticed by the daily ups and downs of our lives. 8, free of thought in its applications, harboring no sign after rendering beneficence. These 8 great attributes guide us to reflect and model ourselves on the Tao of heaven and earth. Of these 8 Tao, the last one is considered as the ultimate Tao, free of thought in its applications. This means that whatever we do, we should do it without holding any expectation of an outcome or acknowledgement. This is what we mean by harboring no sign. Our Dharma teachers often remind us how the person of Tao appropriately responds and interacts with the world. This is called the way of humanity. In our scripture book, there is an entire chapter about embodying the way of humanity. Let me introduce the first verse from this chapter. A newcomer to Won Buddhism asks about the Tao. Sotaesan replies that the Tao is vast and can only be fully understood with a substantial practice and training. Nevertheless, he gives this explanation. Generally speaking, the way Tao is another name for path. What we mean by path is the way to conduct ourselves appropriately in any and all circumstances. The conduct of heaven is called the Tao of heaven. The conduct of earth is called the Tao of earth. The conduct of human beings is called the Tao of humanity. The scripture continues, just as physical roads connect each and every region via a network of main roads and side roads, connecting mountains, water, fields, and villages, so too the path of our spiritual conduct progresses through main roads and side roads, appearing as many paths in accordance with the conditions of individuals, families, societies, and nations. If I were to offer just a few examples, Sotaesan said, between parents and children, there is a path for parents and children to follow. Between superior and subordinate, a path for superior and subordinate to follow. Between spouses, a path for spouses. Among friends, a path for friends. And among countrymen, a path for fellow citizens to follow. In this manner, he summarized, for any situation or circumstance we may encounter, there are suitable paths. Regardless of the situation, a person who simply knows the suitable path is a person who knows the way, the Tao. This passage reminds us of the Tao of heaven and the Tao of earth, which reflects basic Taoist philosophy. The Tao of humanity explains that in every relationship and situation, there are appropriate paths to take. This perspective also reflects the philosophy of Confucianism. So Daoism said, if we were to speak of the greatest Tao of them all, it is the Tao that is free from arising and ceasing, and free from the retribution and response of cause and effect. This is the way of our original true nature. This Tao unifies all dharmas, heaven, earth, and humanity. End quote. The ultimate Tao of no arising and no ceasing is central in Buddhist philosophy. The Tao free from arising and ceasing, and free from the retribution and response of cause and effect. What does this mean? Human minds are cluttered with words and thoughts. Judging, worrying, and discriminating thoughts constantly arise and cease, arise and cease. Through our thoughts, we create karma. The greatest Tao is freeing ourselves from the constant arising of thoughts. A piece of land without yin and yang. A piece of land without yin and yang. A valley without echo. A valley without echo. These koans describe a realm free from arising and ceasing. This Tao leads us inward, where there is no urgency and no need to reply, respond, or react. As practitioners, we aspire not to be swayed when sensory conditions arise. The Tao of no rising and no ceasing elucidates the reality of the universe. In the big picture of time and space, heaven and earth neither arise nor cease. All things abide without beginning or end. In conclusion, I'd like to say that Tao is not somewhere on top of a mountain or in a faraway, lofty place. It permeates every part of our lives. Here in the temple, at home, at work, and everywhere we go, and in all that we do. Here in the Dharma Hall, you are a person of Tao. If you agree, you are a person of Tao. You come in, you bow, you meditate during meditation time, you converse during Dharma sharing time, and you return your mat when departing. You go with the flow. For online friends, there is Tao in how you practice at home. For example, during our chanting session, you can chant quietly or loudly according to what works for your home situation. Tao is the moral, mindful, and skillful way of respecting others and progressing together as a community. It is constant and fluid, beyond definition. Taking this deep dive today, you may have noticed I've said the word Tao a lot. I checked 67 times. I hope you're not drowning in words. I hope you are simply going with the flow. As was mentioned when I began, the Tao that can be told is not the true Tao.